Welcome, brave souls, to Midnight Whispers. Traverse this realm at your own peril. For within these tales lurk horrors most foul. Tonight's tale may twist the very fabric of your sanity. And a word to the wise, this narrative paints pictures of terror not meant for every eye or ear. Venture ahead if you dare, but remember, you have been warned.
Each step I took through the post-apocalyptic wasteland felt heavy, but I clutched my backpack, determined to keep moving. At 13, the horrors I'd witnessed were beyond imagination. But in my heart, I carried a promise to my older brother Alex to survive. I often found myself reminiscing about the lessons Alex taught me before everything went south. Always double-check your supplies, Rafa, his voice echoed in my mind. And never trust a stranger, no matter how kind they seem. One evening, as I was setting up camp, I murmured to the emptiness around me. Remember that time, Alex, when you showed me how to set these traps? A sudden rustle in the bushes caused me to grip the knife Alex had entrusted to me. A dog, its fur matted and eyes wary, emerged. It looked as exhausted as I felt. Memories of Alex's teachings came rushing back. Always be wary, Rafa, but never lose your humanity. I shared the little food I had with the dog, and from that day, he never left my side. I named him Shadow. As days turned into weeks, my journey led me across the desolate stretches of the country. My destination? A town in Texas that once rang with familiar laughter, where memories of a happier time lingered. One day, after what felt like months of traveling, I found myself standing in front of a house that stirred vague memories from the depths of my mind. Pushing open the creaking door, I stepped inside, letting the remnants of the past wash over me. It was a home I could barely remember, but fragments of my childhood echoed in its silence. Amidst the debris on the floor, a familiar photo caught my eye. Picking it up, I saw two young boys, arms wrapped around each other in a protective embrace. It was Alex and me. The picture brought back a flood of memories. The road trip, the joy, the sudden chaos, and then the separation from our family. I was only 8 back then, and since that fateful day, it had been just the two of us, brothers against the world. That photograph, a relic of a past life, weighed heavy in my hands. The responsibility Alex felt, the promise we made to each other, all came rushing back. I placed the photo safely in my bag, a tangible reminder of my mission and the bond that could never be broken. With renewed determination, I ventured forth, knowing that every step I took was not just for me, but in honor of Alex and the family we had lost. The winter winds began to howl, signaling the need for a more permanent shelter. As Shadow and I wandered further south, we stumbled upon an unexpected sight. An abandoned grape plantation. Rows upon rows of gnarled vines stretched across the landscape, their leaves turning auburn in the winter chill. At the heart of the vineyard stood an old stone farmhouse, its walls thick enough to insulate against the cold. Moving in, we quickly discovered that the house had a cellar. To our delight, there were still bottles of wine lining its shelves, and more crucially, jars of preserved fruits and vegetables. It wasn't much, but with rationing it could last us through the winter. Every morning I'd set out with Shadow, searching for additional food. The bare vines still held some shriveled grapes, which, when boiled, created a nutritious broth. Small game like rabbits and squirrels occasionally wandered into the plantation, providing a vital source of protein. However, food wasn't our only concern. The real danger came from other survivors. One evening, as the sun was setting, I spotted a group of men on the horizon. From their rugged appearance and the way they moved, swift, silent, and coordinated, it was clear they were raiders. I remembered Alex's lessons about never trusting strangers and decided to lay low. Using the vines as cover, Shadow and I would move around, ensuring we were never in one place for long. But one night the raiders came too close. A close call with one of them nearly revealed our hideout, but Shadow's quick thinking diverted them. He barked loudly from the opposite direction, drawing their attention and allowing me to slip away. The days grew shorter and the nights colder. The tension of being discovered grew with each passing day. I needed a way to deter the raiders permanently. Rummaging through the farmhouse, I found old farming equipment, which I used to set up traps around the perimeter. Pits were dug, and sharp tools were rigged to swing from trees. One morning, a scream echoed through the plantation. One of the traps had worked, injuring a raider. As his comrades rushed to his aid, I took the opportunity to make a bold move. Setting a section of the vineyard alight, I watched as the flames quickly spread, causing chaos and panic. The raiders, thinking the fire was an attack by a larger group, decided the plantation wasn't worth the risk and retreated. With the immediate threat gone, I spent the remainder of the winter fortifying our home. The solitude was challenging, but every evening as I sat by the fireplace with Shadow resting by my side, I would pull out the photo of Alex and me, drawing strength from our bond. Winter's frost had given way to the budding promises of spring. Days grew longer and warmth seeped back into the earth. One day, while sorting through some old calendars in the farmhouse, I realized I had turned 14. It struck me how, in the rush of survival, I had let my birthday come and go unnoticed. The weight of solitude pressed down on me more than ever. In the kitchen, while rummaging for something to eat, I stumbled upon an old zebra cake. The packaging was worn, but the cake inside still seemed intact. With a small, sad smile, I placed it on a wooden plate, lit a matchstick as a makeshift candle, and made a silent wish. Shadow watched with curious eyes as I sang a soft happy birthday to myself. The cake's sweet taste brought a rush of memories. Simpler times when birthdays meant family, friends, and laughter. Lost in my thoughts, I barely noticed the footsteps approaching the farmhouse. Shadow growled lowly, snapping me back to the present. I grabbed my knife and approached the door cautiously. Peeking out, I saw a girl, just a little older than me, her hair a tangled mess, and eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I mean no harm," she said, raising her hands. "My name's Clara. I was just looking for some food." We studied each other, gauging intentions. Her eyes landed on the remnants of the zebra cake on the table. "Is it your birthday?" she asked, a hint of warmth in her voice. I nodded. Or well, it was. I kinda lost track of time. Clara smiled slightly, breaking the tension between us. "Happy belated birthday." We talked more, and she revealed that she had been on the move for months, searching for her family who had been separated during an evacuation. I felt a pang of empathy, remembering the traumatic separation from my own family. Seeing the sincerity in her eyes and knowing the perils of traveling alone, I offered, "You can stay here for a while, or we can travel together. 2 pairs of eyes are better than 1. She considered it, then nodded. "Okay, but only if you share more of those cakes, birthday boy." I laughed, realizing that perhaps this was my birthday gift, a new companion in this desolate world. From that day, Shadow, Clara, and I became a trio, venturing forth with shared dreams and memories, determined to find a place of safety and reunite with our lost families. As we moved through the desolate landscapes, with New Orleans on the distant horizon, Clara and I became more comfortable with each other. One evening, as we set up camp beneath the shadow of a dilapidated barn, she looked over at me, a curious expression on her face. "So, Rafa," she began hesitantly, her eyes fixed on the crackling fire between us. "You've heard bits and pieces about my past. Tell me about yours. You mentioned an older brother, Alex, right?" I stiffened, a wave of emotions crashing over me. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Yeah, Alex. He was everything to me. He took care of me after we got separated from our family during a road trip. It was just the 2 of us against the world." Clara tilted her head, encouraging me to continue. I swallowed the lump in my throat. One day, while we were scavenging for supplies, a massive horde of the undead appeared out of nowhere. "Alex," he led them away, giving me a chance to escape. He told me to wait for him in our hideout. I did, but he never came back. I blinked away the tears, memories of that day flashing vividly in my mind. I was sure I heard screams in the distance. Heart-wrenching, agonized screams. I waited for days, clinging to the hope that he'd return. But he never did. Eventually, hunger and thirst forced me to move. I was just 10. Clara's eyes softened, her hand reaching out to cover mine. "I'm so sorry, Rafa." I nodded, wiping my eyes. I've tried to move on, but a part of me has always hoped that maybe, just maybe, he made it out. But deep down, I know he's gone. He sacrificed himself for me. She squeezed my hand reassuringly. "You know, in this world, it's those memories, the love and sacrifices that keep us going. Alex lives on in you, in the lessons he taught you, in the strength he gave you." I looked up at the starry sky. "Thank you, Clara. It means a lot to talk about him." The ruins of New Orleans loomed ahead, remnants of its vibrant past echoing through the silent, desolate streets. Clara and I moved cautiously, each step deliberate, each sound amplifying the eerie quiet. Shadow, ever alert, moved ahead of us, his ears perked up and tail low. Just as we turned a corner near what used to be the bustling French Quarter, a sudden movement caught my eye. Before I could react, several figures emerged, surrounding us. We were effectively cornered, and I gripped my makeshift weapon tightly, ready to fight. But these figures were different. Their postures were not menacing, and their faces, while wary, lacked malicious intent. A young woman with vibrant tattoos and fiery red hair stepped forward, her stance authoritative yet open. "Who are you and what's your business here?" she asked, her voice firm. Before I could answer, Clara intervened. "We're just passing through looking for supplies. We mean no harm." The redhead studied us for a moment and then nodded. "I'm Jazz, leader of the scouts here. We're part of a larger survivor group. Haven't seen fresh faces in a while." Clara's eyes widened. "A group? How many of you are there?" Jazz smirked. "Enough to have lasted this long. We number in the hundreds." I was taken aback. In this apocalypse, finding such a large group of survivors was rare. It signified structure, resources, and possibly safety. Jazz continued, "You're welcome to stay with us. But there's a protocol. Everyone new gets vetted by our leader first. Can't be too careful these days." Clara and I exchanged glances. The promise of safety and community was tempting. "All right," I replied cautiously. "We'll meet your leader." Jazz motioned for us to follow, leading us through a labyrinth of streets until we reached a fortified section of the city. Tall barricades had been erected, watchtowers stationed with guards, and amidst it all, survivors went about their daily routines, creating an almost surreal semblance of normalcy. Inside, children played, people bartered goods, and the delicious aroma of cooking food wafted through the air. It was a stark contrast to the lonely and perilous journey we'd been on. As we moved deeper into the encampment, Jazz finally stopped in front of a large, reinforced building. "Our leader's in here," she said, pushing the door open. Clara and I stepped in, uncertain of what to expect next, unaware that this meeting would change everything. The atmosphere in the room was thick with shock and disbelief. I stared wide-eyed at the man before me, memories of our time together flooding my mind. That familiar face, older now and worn by the hardships of this post-apocalyptic world, but undeniably Alex. "Alex?" My voice trembled barely above a whisper. His eyes, filled with tears, met mine. "Rafa, I never thought I'd see you again." Before I could say anything, he moved towards me, wrapping me in a one-armed embrace. I clung to him, the weight of years of loneliness and worry melting away. The reunion was emotional, filled with tears, laughter, and reminiscing. Eventually, we sat down, and Alex began to share his harrowing tale. He recounted the fateful day he led the undead away, trying to give me a fighting chance. I drew them to a nearby bridge, planning to jump and swim away. But they were faster than I thought. I was trapped with nowhere to go. He took a deep breath, the pain evident in his eyes. I spotted an old moving van nearby. The roof looked sturdy enough to keep them out, so I climbed on top. But it had been years since the outbreak, and the roof had corroded. I crashed through, landing on some construction supplies, a sharp piece piercing my arm. I winced, imagining the agony he must have felt. He continued. "I tried to stop the bleeding, but it was too much. I knew if I didn't act fast, I'd bleed out or the infection would spread. I found a piece of cloth, tied it tightly near the base of my injury, and with a machete I found in the van, I cut off the rest of my arm." Tears streamed down his face. The pain was unbearable. I screamed and cried out until I passed out from the blood loss. Clara, her hand covering her mouth, whispered, "How did you survive?" Alex smiled weakly. "Luck, I guess. A group of survivors heading south found me a few days later. They had a medic with them who cleaned and stitched up my wound. I was in and out of consciousness for weeks. By the time I recovered, we were far south, and they had taken me in as one of their own. The world had become even more dangerous, and I thought I had lost you, Rafa." I hugged him tightly, tears flowing freely. "I never gave up hope, Alex. I always believed we'd find each other." The bond between two brothers, tested by the horrors of a post-apocalyptic world, had come full circle. Reunited, they now faced the future together, stronger than ever.
And so, another tale from the depths of night concludes. But remember, dear listeners, in the realm of midnight whispers, the echoes of our stories never truly fade. If tonight's tale left you hungering for more, explore our anthology of horrors. For those brave enough, delve into our previous stories and discover what lurks in the shadows. Before you venture back into the safety of daylight, remember to like this video if it sent shivers down your spine. Subscribe and ring the bell, so the whispers of the midnight hour always find their way to you. And should you dare, leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. We revel in knowing which parts of our tales resonate with your darkest curiosities. Until next time, keep listening to the whispers, for they have